do I start this thing?
Have you plugged the bloody USB in?
Yeah, it's in.
Nah, man, that's the wrong port. Oh, wait, it's flashing now.
Is it it's recording.
Well, let's start this thing, fool.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amelia.
Hi, I'm Sam. Welcome to Ask the Duo podcast, a podcast where we get deep into those late-night, unfiltered conversations.
We'll be discussing all things lifestyle, relationship, mindset, and more.
All right, let's get to it.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Nice
I was looking at the time.
Nice little lag there.
Yes.
We have some exciting things that we've been working on in the background. And if you're watching the video, as you can see, we have some t-shirts.
Yeah, you can see it's behind the microphone, the camera.
So, Ask the Duo logo on the side and a little quote on the back, which we thought was kind of cute. So, yeah, looking forward to sharing these shirts around with the guests that we'll have on and just some friends and family as well.
Yeah, we finally pulled the trigger. I know we've had a few guys DM us and basically letting us know, hey, we should be producing some of the t-shirts. Yes, we finally did. And thank you guys for reminding us. It's a good opportunity to jump onto that.
We're really loving it, so thank you all. Today, we're going to be discussing jealousy and envy. There is a slight difference between the two, but we wanted to discuss like your definition on how you saw jealousy and envy and the differences between the two and also how you navigate tackling this emotion.
So my question is, have you felt that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's definitely something that everyone has felt before. But I was thinking about it, and in the recent years, I would not say I've felt it, or even if I felt it, it's not like something strong where I would hold myself to it and be like, oh, I'm so jealous of this person, or like, I envy this person. And I think there's this saying where, you know, when you're so focused on yourself and bettering yourself and working on yourself, you don't realize all the other things that's happening around you, which is really true. And I've just been busy because I do freelance, I work full time and do all that stuff, and I'm always constantly working on something where I just don't really have the time to think of other things. Like, obviously, I'm in the creative industry, right? So I will be looking at other people's work or, you know, trying to find inspiration for my designs. Like that, I would probably look at it and be like, oh, that's really good work. I wish I can do something like that. But I'm not to the point where I'm like, why is this person so good? Why aren't I good like that? You know, that kind of feeling. Yeah.
And it's very relatable to me, though I am in a different industry. I don't think I've felt jealous or envious of someone in a very long time, actually. I feel like now where I'm at, more focused on myself. I don't really care about other people. I don't really look at other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's good because it means that you're growing. You're definitely understanding to work on yourself. And I think it's only natural when you've come out of high school, you're looking for a job. I think that's probably the prominent time where I've felt jealous or envious someone, because I graduated uni and I couldn't find a job in my industry. I couldn't find a job in general, actually. And the longer I was out of a job, the more I'm seeing how people are getting a job, and then now they're getting a second job or they've got promoted, and I'm like still here trying to find something. And that's when I start to have self-doubt and just not trusting in myself and not trusting in my own journey. And that's when I start to feel jealous and envious.
Yeah, and that's very similar to me in my early 20s, I would say, because you're obviously venturing in reality and a whole new world, right? You're learning new things, you're being exposed to things that you're not used to, your comfort zone, your self-esteem is low.
Yeah. And you briefly touched on it the first time you got made redundant in your redundancy episode. That first time, your whole mindset was completely different. You were feeling a bit more envious and jealous of other people, seeing that been out of a job for, was it like a year or something, and you see other people jumping into new jobs and you couldn't find anything, like it started to get to you.
Yeah, of course. It was 6 months that I was out of work.
Yeah, okay,
but,
another year.
but in terms of sitting there and trying to find work and seeing other people and your peers get work.
Like they're just constantly moving where you're just stagnant.
Yeah, you're stagnant. And that feeling and that train of thought does come into play because that's human nature, right? You see people, you're like, fuck you. Like, why am I not getting that? Or why am I not doing well?
Yeah.
And it's natural, right? But as you sort of alluded to, 100% earlier in the years when you're lacking that experience, you're lacking that self-esteem, you have no direction, you're always going to have that jealousy and that envious feeling because you're still figuring yourself out.
Yeah. So what I wanted to discuss is, feeling these emotions is completely normal and it's not always a bad thing, like jealousy, envy. And I think for some people it could be really good motivators for you to do better, which is eventually, where we came to. But at the same time, if you didn't work on this feeling, you can go the other way where you let these negative thoughts go up essentially.
Yeah, take over you.
Yeah, but another thing that I was also thinking about and also just doing my research online, jealousy and envy is actually two separate things. Like they can happen simultaneously, like these emotions that you can feel, but the reasoning or the definition behind it is actually different.
Let's define the meaning of the two.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, what's your definition of jealousy and envious?
So my definition of envy is when you see someone like your peer or someone that's random and whatever achievement they've got that you wish that you could have achieved, that's when you're feeling that envious feeling. You wish that you were in their seat. You wish that you were in their shoes because that's ultimately what you wanted to be in. That's how I see envious or envy. When you envy someone.
Yep, and jealousy?
Jealousy is, my understanding of jealousy is more related, probably more towards relationship stuff. When, I guess, you're feeling a certain way where you feel threatened in some way or you're affected emotionally because something is interrupting something, whether it's like in a relationship or that situation or that scenario. And that's when you feel jealous and you have that negative emotion towards that.
Yeah, like I would sort of explain it like that, but I wouldn't say jealousy is only for relationships. It could be different things. But what I was reading up on is that envy, that feeling, is usually towards something that's like a third party. It may not be directly something that's towards you, whereas jealousy is something that is immediately threatening you. So that's why in relationships, if, say, you were talking to another girl, I would feel jealous, and that's because it's directly threatening me. But if I was, like, envious of, say, like, Nicki Minaj and her Balenciaga handbag or something like that, like, I'm envious because it's like, oh, I wish I had money to buy something like that. So it's something that's like third party, not directly to you, but you wish you could have that kind of possession. Right. Like it doesn't have to be materialistic items. That was just an example, but that was what a lot of people define envy versus jealousy.
And that's, yeah, it's interesting when you actually define the difference between envy and jealousy, it's more related to how it has any correlation between yourself and whatever that's happening. Like you're saying, envy is more, what is it, a third party situation, is it?
Yeah, something that's less directed towards you. It's just you feeling like you would love to have this as well, or like I would love to be able to do this as well.
Yeah.
Whereas jealousy is like, oh no, this person or this situation is now threatening me.
As a direct effect to yourself, yeah.
Or you have a fear of losing something because of a certain situation or something like that.
Yeah, and when you actually put it in that perspective, it actually makes sense.
Yeah, so you can see why they can work together, but they are still different things.
Yeah, yep.
Relationships is like the biggest thing. You can give an example. Like, I can envy the girl that you're hanging out with because she's really smart, she's intelligent, she's so good with talking, she's really sociable, and then I feel jealous because I'm completely the opposite. I'm introverted and I'm jealous because now she's your best friend or something like that, and you've known her for 5 to 10 years And I'm feeling jealous because I'm feeling threatened that maybe potentially because she's so good at everything, I might lose you to her.
Yep. No.
So it's like two different things.
Yep. That actually really makes sense. And it's good because you don't normally see, I mean, not see, but you don't really hear the definition defined in that way.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah, there are times where people potentially get that mixed up, right?
Yeah.
So.
And like both aren't bad things. I think it's just how you see it and how you work through it in your head. That's when it could become negative because you let those emotions take over you.
So then more related to you, have you ever felt jealous? Have you got examples of how you felt jealous and times when you felt envious?
In terms of like jealous and envious, I think it's always around careers, but like not recently, like as I was mentioning at the start, it's when I'm trying to move up the ladder, like in my career, and just seeing how other people are growing so fast, especially in the creative industry, it's very competitive and it's so subjective, but you can, and because like social media, Instagram, like Facebook, everything, like the followers, like the accounts and stuff, that's a big measuring data of if you're really good at what you do or if people love what you do. For me, I also have a design Instagram, but it's like you don't see it grow as fast and you see other people blow up so fast and you can't help but it's not comparing, but you're like, oh, how come my work isn't seen or isn't shown, or like why don't people like my work as good as others? Yeah. And that was the early years when I'm just trying to grow in the industry and get known out there, and that was how I felt. So that's like an example of when I felt envious of others, but I wouldn't say I was jealous. It was just more like, how do I get there?
Yeah. And that makes sense when you put it in that perspective when it came to your career, because you in that creative industry, everyone around you may have started in the same time or the same class or whatever it is, and you can see them progressively grow, but then you look at yourself and you reflect and you're like, well, fuck, how the fuck am I gonna?
Well, there wasn't really people that I knew. It was just seeing how people grew so fast, or I would hear their stories and be like their stories are usually just very general. It's like I started off as something really small. I worked late every night just to work on my passion project, and overnight it just grew. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's a chance that overnight I can grow, but it never happened. And I'm just like, okay, so what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that was what I always thought about. But over time, the more you're just focused on growing yourself. So I started focusing on growing my skill sets and expanding my skill sets. And as I get busier and more focused on doing that, all the other stuff doesn't matter. And also, one big thing for us, especially in creators, is don't just look at the follower counts or the like counts. Like, that really doesn't mean anything, because the people who are going to like your work are going to like your work, whether it's a physical like on Instagram or like buying your designs or buying your service. That's what should really matter, as opposed to, what's showing on Instagram.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, numbers don't tell everything, right? Yeah, it's more comes down to whether the followers actually like your content. You know what I mean? So what you basically alluded to is really important, because I feel when it comes to social media, a lot of people get that mixed up in terms of, oh, you've got the numbers, it means you're doing well.
Yeah, like I focus more on like how much do people believe in my work, or people come to me for my expert advice. Like if people are coming to me for help or asking me how should I do this, how should I do that, like I feel like that's more rewarding. Like you should need to find what's rewarding for you. If I get like 10,000 likes on a post that I did, yeah, I would feel good, like for sure, but it's not rewarding because I don't feel like I really helped anyone. And I think for me, like leading a bit back towards like finding your core purpose, I think the core purpose for me, I really enjoy being able to help someone, and knowing that my service and my advice has helped someone, that's more meaningful to me, as opposed to focusing on the likes. And then that leads back into eliminating feeling jealousy or envious of other people.
Yeah, no, that's a good mind frame that you've got there in terms of helping you filter that side of things. But outside of career though, have you ever felt like jealous or envious of
No, I wouldn't say. I think for me, I think you would know yourself, but I have never felt jealous of a person in terms of relationship. I'm just a person. Like, I've always been like this. My thought is, if this person truly wants to be with you, they will be with you and they will show it through their actions. No matter words that they say that, like, oh, I'm only with you, like, you're the only one for me, blah, blah, blah. They can say that as much as they want, but if they don't show it through their actions, then to me, there's no proof behind it. Like, you haven't shown it through your actions. But the other thing is, if this person doesn't want to be with you, then you can't force that. Like, there's no amount of things that you can do to force someone to be with you. And I'm just going to let that be. I've never been like, oh, I really want this person, but he likes this other girl. I feel jealous. I need to make him like me, blah, blah, blah. To me, that's like wasted energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. In relation to personal or relationship side of things, I definitely have felt jealous in terms of a relationship in the past when I was younger and probably immature and just figuring out life, right?
And like what way? Like what happened?
Exactly that. It's exactly what it was. It's like, oh, you know, the girl at the time was talking to someone else and I felt threatened. So I felt jealous. And it's really small, minor things that for me, I probably overlooked.
So did you try and do anything to try and like win the girl over or?
No, it was more so I would act a different way or I would be emotional and stuff like that just to sort of express that I am a little jealous. Now, keep in mind, people react differently when they feel jealous, right? So some people would directly tell their partner, hey, this is what's happening, blah, 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 blah. Or some people would hide from that situation and scenario to hint that they are jealous, right? So everyone handles the situation differently, but for me, it was more so I would act differently in a way where it's like I'm upset at that person because it's like, well,
like you start to resent them in a way.
In a way, yeah. And it's like, oh, well, that's how I used to act in that situation when it came to relationships.
Yep. So how did you overcome that, would you say?
Look, over the time and the years of being in relationships and just life in general, just like you, I don't waste my energy on that sort of stuff.
Did you just one day think about it and you're like, it's not really worth my energy?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, yeah, 100%. It's more like, well, it's not worth my energy to fucking dwell and, you know, mope and shit over that stuff.
I think it's completely fine if you feel sad about it, but it's just what, like we said, like what you do with it. Like if you were open and told that person, hey, I really like you, but I noticed that you're hanging out with the other guy a lot more than me. Like, where are we going? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, I think. You know, when I realized that it was a waste of time and waste of energy is when I realized that talking and being open and transparent solves the issue in a minute.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, why should I waste my time feeling jealous when I could just directly approach my partner and say, hey, this is what's happening. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And I'd rather be open and be in the clear where it's like, are you keen or are you not? Like, or what's happening?
Yeah. And I feel like in a relationship perspective, it's about two people. It's not one person. So if you're feeling a certain way, don't keep it in. Like, you need to discuss it with the other person. And one, if that person became angry or defensive, that's an answer. And two, if they do tell you that, yeah, I'm falling for the other guy, then that's another answer. Like, now you have the answers to move forward than to go in the same circle in your head and being like, oh, what's happening? And assuming this and assuming that, and you're feeling sad, but the other person doesn't know that you're feeling sad. So, yeah, like, definitely open up and communicate because you get the answers faster than you just sitting in your own thoughts.
Yeah. And outside of relationships, I don't think I've ever really felt jealous of like my friends and stuff like that. Maybe when I was like really young, and I'm talking like 20 or something like that, where I used to hang out with a big group of friends, and I'd be jealous of one person because they, you know, one of my friends hung out with them more, and I'm like, oh, hang on, what about me? Like, you know, fuck you. Like, like those situations and moments, definitely have had those. And in terms of how I handled it, well, I was immature. I didn't know how I handled it. I just left it. I didn't really do anything. I just thought, well, if my friend is hanging out with them and they want to be good friends, then cool, you guys go do that thing.
Yeah.
I just keep walking alone.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess like in that sense, I have felt that when I was younger too. But at the same time, I'm such an independent person, and I actually do not mind being alone, and I can completely be so happy. So, but I do have felt that like once in a while, but then at the same time, that's only a short moment. Then I'm like, you know, they can hang out with other people if they want to, but they can also hang out with you too. Like, just because they're hanging out with someone else doesn't mean like they're deemed as best friends and now you're not their best friend or something like that. Like, there can be so many different people that you hang out with at different point in time.
Yeah, and see, for me, when I was that age, I was never used to being alone. So I was completely opposite to you. I had to be around people. I was always out. I was with, you know, big groups of people. So my environment was always with people. So to have that situation happen, it affected me a lot, because it's like, I wouldn't say abandonment, right? But it's like, oh, you've lost a friend. Now that person's gone.
That's so funny, like kind of off topic, because I'm so independent to the point that I need to learn to be with people. Like, I need to learn to how to include people, because I can be so independent to the point that I would, in a sense, like not in a bad way, I'm just not inclusive, because I'm just so satisfied with being by myself. Like, I would go shopping by myself, and I wouldn't be like to a friend, hey, want to come with me? And then a friend would be like, hey, why didn't you ask me to go shopping with you? I'm like, I just purely enjoy shopping by myself.
Yeah, and that's because you're so ingrained in that situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're so used to it, so it doesn't come to mind to think about asking a friend, or, you know what I mean, like just to hang out with someone while you're doing that. Like you can kill two birds with one stone by doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as an example. And that's something I always used to think about every time I'd go shopping. But, oi, come out.
Yeah,
come
that was
chill.
you like asked me to like drive you places, or you were like, I'm going to Plaza, you want to come with me?
Yeah, and I always thought about that in that way, where it's like, well, I need to get something done, but at the same time, why can't I hang out with you or someone at the same time? And I was always used to that type of situation. So
yeah. Anyways,
off topic a little bit.
Reeling it back, when do you think jealousy and envy can become bad, like a negative thing, and start to affect you?
I think when it comes to jealousy, it's when you're thinking emotionally in a negative way, where you're either putting other people down and you're putting yourself down. When it comes to you and other people, and you're thinking in that negative mindset, that's when shit's fucked. Yeah. And it's the same thing with envious. Because if you're envying someone of whatever it is, material or their lifestyle or where they're at in their life, and you're putting yourself down because you're not good enough to be in that situation.
Yeah, I think, jealousy is exactly that, where you put someone else down or you put yourself down. But I think envy, it's when you put self-limiting beliefs. So again, using that materialistic thing where, I don't know, Nicki Minaj with her Balenciaga bag, you're limiting your own beliefs because you're like, I envy her with the amount of money she has and she can get that bag, but you're limiting yourself by saying that you can't ever get there. Yeah. You don't have the potential to earn that amount of money to treat yourself to something good. Yeah. So I think that's when it becomes bad, and the more you believe that, the worse or the digger.
The digger, what the hell's that?
The deeper the hole you're digging for yourself.
Yeah, and it's exactly that, right? And it's anyone can save, they can work their way up to get something, and it takes time, right? But it's always about that the mindset. The mindset is what gets you to that point.
Mm.
And if you're always doubting yourself and saying, no, I'm not going to get that, or that's unachievable, well, yeah, rightly so. You're not going to get it because you keep, thinking that.
Yeah.
So that's the pinnacle point when you go, okay, am I feeling envious, and am I feeling a certain way where I'm making myself feel like I can't achieve it? That's when you know, okay, that's the bad part.
Yeah, that actually brought up an example that I thought of. Another one that's big for me is body image. So there was an episode where I talked about diet culture and how I was so into just become skinny, like working out so much to the point that I was like so fatigued mentally, emotionally. And that was one of the biggest things, is because of Instagram and like all the people that they paint as beautiful women out there, which they are, but they're generally really skinny, so toned, so lean. And like for me, I don't have a typical girl's body. I would say I have quite an athletic body, naturally. And because of that, I can easily look like I'm really muscly.
Like
I have wide,
dude.
Yeah, I look like a dude technically. And I have such a wide back, wide shoulder. So not your typical Asian body, especially in the Asian community. Because Asians are known, especially girls, for how tiny they are.
Petite and, breakable they are, and you know what I mean? Like
so that's like the stereotypical. So I would say envy, where it became negative, was I was just constantly comparing or trying to get my body to look like them when physically my body is not even the same. So there's no way I could ever achieve that. So I needed to learn to appreciate my own body and find ways that I can work out to be happy with my own body. So that was when the envious, I don't know if it was jealousy, because I wasn't saying like hating on the other person for being able to get that body, but I was just envious. It's like, how come this person can eat anything that they want and still look so good? And I'm working out so hard, eating so clean. I can't even eat chocolate. I can't even eat desserts. Can't have sugars or anything. And I'm still looking like a dude. And I'm not lean. So that was a point when I did get into that state.
Yeah, and that's a really big one, because I feel a lot of people go through that body image situation.
Yeah, I think especially for girls, it's quite big.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's like I said, a huge thing that a lot of females go through, right? And there are some dudes that probably go through the same thing too.
Mm.
But it's a matter of obviously realizing, right? Like you're saying, how do you control it? How did you control that situation when you go, hang on, yes, my body looks like this, and yeah, I'm comparing myself to this other person or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, we do go into depth about this in the diet culture one, so you can hop back to that episode. But in a nutshell, mine was kind of a bit different because we ended up going into lockdown. It was COVID, so a lot of the things that I needed to do were quite restricted. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't go to Muay Thai. I couldn't, because Muay Thai was a thing that actually started to help me be happy with my body, because I think my body itself, I'm not saying that this is the fitness routine for everyone, but my body for myself is, yes, the strength training does help me build muscle, but it doesn't help me get lean. I need the cardio aspect in it, but I hate cardio.
Yeah, so in terms of the mentality perspective, what were you thinking to help you get out of it?
No, so that's what I was leading to. Because of COVID, all the lockdowns, now I have to work with what I've got. I can't go out to the gym. I can't go out with that. So I just had to deal with what I had. So I had to work out at home with limited weights. And I couldn't really go out and buy all the specific foods that I needed to, because I'm still living at home too. So I had to eat whatever the parents were cooking. I lived with you for a bit too. And it's whatever your mum was cooking, because I can't exactly be I don't really want to eat that because the food's too fatty or something like that. I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I just had to work with what I got.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had to train my brain to work with what I've got. And then over time, like it was actually really hard for me mentally, but I saw that my body didn't change. And I was like, hang on, I'm working out less. I'm eating whatever, not even like clean salads or anything. It's just like whatever food's on the table, and then it's not that specific. And I'm looking the same, and if not, I've actually gotten leaner. So that's when the turning point started changing for me.
Yeah, it's more about appreciating what you had as opposed to what you've taken for granted. So how do you keep jealousy and envying in check?
I think in general, as with every emotion, the biggest thing is accepting how you feel. Like, no matter what it is, accept that, yes, you are currently feeling this way, but then how do you work on that? And to work on it is you look at your options, right? And I think the biggest thing for jealousy and envy is working on your own mindset.
We always say this in a lot of our episodes. It's the mindset. The mindset is the strongest thing, right? If you work on your mindset, it's one, accepting the fact of what's happening, but then two, appreciating that fact, because you have to go through what it is first and then realizing what's happened for you to go, okay, let's avoid this from here on.
Yeah, well, I think mindset in this sense is more like knowing that just because one person's succeeding or someone's able to get this, just because they are doesn't make you any less of a person or successful. Like you need to know that you have your own journey and you are able to get to where you want to get to in your own timeline. That's the biggest mindset in this case, and it's specific for jealousy and envy.
You all have your own shoes to walk in life, and it's a matter of actually focusing on yourself, right? Focusing on yourself rather than focusing on other people.
Yeah, focus on yourself, but also realize just because someone else has something doesn't mean that you're a failure or you haven't succeeded or you aren't able to get to a certain point, which is where it leads into this. I think she's another podcaster or author. Her name is Mel Robbins, and she talked about it, and she explained as the reason why envy or jealousy can become bad is when this person thinks that there's only a certain amount of happiness that you can give out in the world. So you feel like this person is now happy because they've got a promotion, or this person's happy because they've got a new bag that you couldn't get. But she questioned, she's like, why do you feel like there's only certain amounts of happiness? Like, you can feel happy too, and you can get to these places as well.
And when she puts it in that perspective, it's really interesting to hear it from that way, because you wouldn't think that feeling jealous or feeling envious would be that deep.
I think it makes sense. Like, to me, it's like the same thing as what we're saying. You wouldn't put someone else down just because they've got a promotion. Like, you should be happy for them, and like, especially if it's like a friend or a colleague that you've known for a long time. Like, just because they got promoted instead of you wouldn't automatically flip the switch and be like, oh, now I hate you because you're now my manager. You would be happy for that person. So I think that's what she's trying to explain, is there's the happiness can go around all around the world. Just because they've got something doesn't mean that they're the only people that are allowed to be happy. You can be too. Yeah,
and that's a really good point, right? Is spreading that love and appreciating that others can do well too. Not just, you know what I mean? And you can too, right? If you just focus on yourself and work on yourself, you can achieve the same things as them too.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is you have your own timeline. Just because someone has a timeline that may have accelerated faster than you and they're in the same industry or they're doing the same thing as you, doesn't mean that you won't be successful or you don't have a good timeline projected for you. It's just that your story is different. Like, everyone has a different story, and how that story unfolds is unique to each and every person.
Yeah, very, very powerful words.
I know, I should be a motivational speaker on TED Talk or something.
Yeah.
Nah, one can only dream.
Well, let us know what you guys think. Your thoughts on jealous and envy.
Yeah, interested to see if you thought that there were two different things or were they the same, and your experiences with feeling jealous or envious of someone else and how you overcome that. And if you're loving what you hear, remember to give us a star rating as well, because that'd be really helpful for us so that we can continue doing what we love.
And I hope you guys like the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Peace out, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much if you have reached to the end. We really appreciate you for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please share it with your friends or family and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you are listening to.
Make sure you share any topics you'd like us to cover or questions you might have to our Instagram.
Slide it into our DMs.
Bigger. You can also stay in the loop of all the behind the scenes and the release of our new episodes there too. Our Instagram is Ask the Duo Podcast. That's AskTheDuo Podcast. Man, feels like I'm in a spelling bee competition right now. Alright, that's it for now, and we'll see you back here for our next episode. Bye!
See ya!